My name is Robin Lieberman, and this is the Migration Summit 2023, organized by MIT Refugee Action Hub, otherwise known as REACT, and by Na'amal and by the Karam Foundation. The summit is a month-long global convening, a cornucopia of sessions designed as a series of events hosted by participating partners around the world, both in person and virtually, with the purpose of building bridges among diverse communities of displaced learners, universities, companies, social enterprises, policymakers, employers, and governments, all of whom confront key challenges and opportunities for refugee and migrant communities. And this year's theme is co-creating pathways for learning, livelihood, and dignity. And we at Villanova University are thrilled to participate in this summit and are very excited to lead today's session entitled Refugee Access for the U.S. Immigration Legal System, Training for Careers as Immigrant Advocates. This session features VIISTA, which you'll learn more about, and VSTARS. Those are people who have taken VIISTA and are doing the work of immigrant advocacy in some of the most necessary and innovative ways. As I said, my name is Robin Lieberman. I'm the Associate Director for External Affairs at the Strategic Initiative for Migrants and Refugees at Villanova University, otherwise known as the SIG. I came as a VIISTA student in 2021 after a long career in human rights advocacy and immigration services. And in that experience, I was privileged not only to fill in the gaps of my knowledge of immigration law, but also to meet a cadre of passionate doers who were generating their own responses in pursuit of immigrant justice, including serving as accredited representatives and immigrant advocates. We'll get into what the SIG is doing in a bit, but a few housekeeping notes before we get into it. One, this session is being recorded for later reference. Closed captioning is turned on for those who may require it. I will ask you to mute yourself if you're not talking for everyone's best experience. I want to thank our friends Camille and others at MIT for producing this series and managing our Zoom functions today. I want to flag that there will be many VSTARs participating today, but I encourage those who are not to still chime in, pipe up, and engage as well. This is your space also. We have two VSTARs, Eddie Alarcon and Olga Guerrera, who will be monitoring the chat and will be dropping in helpful information along the way. So I encourage you to use and monitor the chat function yourself today. And we'll start now that process. If you can continue dropping your names into the chat, along with where you're joining us from and whether you're a VIISTA student and in which module. So we have about 80 minutes together. And we have a lot of stories to share and a lot of work to do. So here's how it's going to go. Our first speaker is my favorite colleague and social entrepreneur, Professor Michelle Pistone. Michelle is a law professor at Villanova, the creator and faculty director of VIISTA, and the founding faculty director of the SIG. So for about 20 minutes, she's going to frame the problem we are here today to address and delve into how VIISTA trains and activates immigrant advocates, why it works, and how it is a foundation for the movement for immigrant justice. And one of the reasons it works is because it engages students where they are, including people who are immigrants themselves. And to that, we're going to have two students, two VSTARs, will speak about 5 minutes each about how VIISTA helped them retool their careers and contribute to the immigrant justice movement as they resettled in the U.S. Shakira Rahimi came to the U.S. from Afghanistan in 2014 and is now the Afghan Alliance Coordinator at the Luminous Network for New Americans in Howard County, Maryland. She completed VIISTA in December 2022 and became an accredited representative last month. And Samuel Abu was a journalist in Liberia before fleeing to the U.S. in 2005, where he now works as the supervisor for case management at Catholic Social Services Refugee Resettlement Program in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. And he studied in VIISTA in 2021. After Shakira and Samuel speak, I will then share a few projects the SIG is working on to zoom us back out and to give you a sense of what we're doing to build the enabling environment for accredited reps. And then you will go to work in breakout sessions for about 15 minutes, facilitated by, you guessed it, VSTARs, where you can then meet a few more participants and discuss what you can do to promote accredited representatives and immigrant advocates as a strategy to advance immigrant justice. We'll then have a 15-minute report out from those breakout rooms and with some closing thoughts from Michelle, and then it's a wrap. Okay? So with that, I would like to hand it over to Michelle.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here. It's so amazing to see such a great turnout. And so I'm an immigration lawyer, an immigration law professor at Villanova. And for years, I worked with refugees and asylum seekers trying to navigate through the immigration system. And the one thing that I came out of that experience is that everyone deserves an advocate, and that there are so many needs in the immigration system that can be achieved through people who are action-oriented and want to become part of the solution. So I believe that everyone deserves an advocate, and yet this is the system that we face today. There are 2.1 million immigration cases pending in immigration court. 60% of immigrants who appear in immigration court, including children, go to court without representation. And yet we know that people are at least 10 times more likely to be granted access to the benefit that they deserve if they have a representative. So I felt like I needed to take action and figure out a way to address this problem. And that's when I started to work on thinking about how to engage more people in the legal services ecosystem. Lawyers alone cannot solve this problem. In fact, when we look at the statistics and the Journal on Migration and Human Security, which is a publication from the Center of Migration Studies, a very good, well-renowned think tank on immigration, recently came out with a report that we'll add in the chat now that says that for every one charitable legal services professional, so that's lawyers and accredited representatives, there are 1,416 undocumented immigrants. So we know that the system that we have today is not capable of providing the legal representation that's needed. Imagine that one person would have to do 1,400 cases. And this is a statistic that's based on the national average. There are some parts of the country where the disparity is even more extreme, where it's one legal services professional for as many as 6,000 undocumented immigrants. And I really recommend that if you're interested in this issue, to look at that report that will be added in the chat. So what I worked on and been working on for the last 5 years is to figure out how to use online education in order to provide a solution. And so VIISTA is the first university-based online certificate program to train immigrant advocates. And a big part of this is recognizing that you don't need to be a lawyer to become part of the solution, that there's a lot of opportunity and space within the legal services ecosystem for us to create new layers, kind of like nurse practitioners for the law, where we can start thinking robustly about how to address the needs in our society, needs that are so central to the health, the well-being, and the ability of families to stay together, which of course is so important for immigrant families. And so we need to train more advocates, and we need to train them now. And what we're doing in VIISTA is we're taking advantage of long established regulations that have been on the books for decades that allow people who are not lawyers to nonetheless provide legal services to immigrants and refugees. And we do that because the Department of Justice created a program decades ago that allows what's called accredited representatives to either work or volunteer with a recognized Department of Justice nonprofit organization to provide legal services. And there are two layers of authorization within the regulations. The first layer is called partially accredited representatives. And people who are partially accredited are authorized to provide legal services and represent immigrants in all sorts of applications before the Department of Homeland Security, particularly U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. So partially accredited representatives can work with immigrants and represent them on issues relating to visas, naturalization, affirmative asylum cases, employment authorization documents, temporary protected status, deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA. There's a whole host of applications that immigrants file and are adjudicated within USCIS, and partially accredited representatives can be authorized to represent them and enter their appearance just like a lawyer would. The second layer of accreditation is called fully accredited representatives. And those are people who, in addition to doing what a partially accredited representative can do, they can also represent immigrants in immigration court just like a lawyer would. So they sit at counsel table, they do direct examination, they do closing arguments just like a lawyer. And what's so beautiful about this specific type of accreditation is that people can get accredited even if they don't go to law school. So that means that they don't have to invest 3 years and more than $100,000 in an education. What we've done through VIISTA is we've created a very focused education in order to prepare people for these two career paths and many other things within the ecosystem. So when I think about what we're doing through VIISTA, I think about it as VIISTA being a bridge between passionate champions for immigrant justice, people who you're going to hear from today who are eager to make a meaningful impact and become part of the solution. And there are people who come to me and say, I want to help. I need to take action. I want to do more than just give money. Please teach me so that I can take action and help people. And then on the other side of the bridge are immigrant families in need of legal support and accompaniment. And I meet people like this all the time in immigration court, people who come to me and say, what are my rights? Help me so I can keep my family together. What do I say to the judge? Where do I go? There are so many questions that we have when we're confronting the immigration system. And what I'm trying to do through VIISTA is give the passionate champions for immigrant justice the education that they need so that they can actually provide the legal services necessary to represent immigrants. So it's really bridging that gap between the passionate champions for immigrant justice and the immigrant families that are in need by equipping immigration practitioners. And all of this has been organized and thought about with community organizations that helped me to figure out what are the skill sets that are needed for people to take action in the community. So basically, through VIISTA, we've reinvented the learning experience. I was very fortunate at the beginning of this project to get a grant from the MacArthur Foundation, and that allowed me to host sessions with community partners where we kind of co-designed, we co-imagined what competencies students would need when they graduated from the program. So I started developing the program backwards. I started with the competencies and then designed an educational program that aligned what the students were learning in the classroom, in the course, with the competences that they would need on the job. And what we're hearing now from our community partners who are employing our students is that they can actually hit the ground running because they've had this experience and this type of education. So the education is very learner-centered and holistic. We look at migration from a lot of different perspectives, why people migrate, understanding the cultural competencies and what it means to be an immigrant. And then it's also interdisciplinary. So we teach a lot of law, but we also teach from many perspectives, because let me tell you, having worked in immigration for 30 years as an immigration lawyer, I know that you cannot look at immigration from only one discipline. It is by nature an interdisciplinary area of law, area of practice. And so focusing on it from that perspective has been really enriching to the students. And the other thing about the program is it's practical and it's problem-based. So that means that everything that the students are learning, they're immediately putting into action. So they learn things and then they do it. And so the curriculum, even though it's online, it's also very practical with students taking action and doing interviews and writing interview plans and writing memos to the file, writing letters to clients, and just everything that they learn, they put into action right away. And the other thing about the way we've designed the program is we recognize that everybody learns differently. So in VIISTA, we approach everything from giving students various opportunities to learn it. It's scaffolded, so students learn something and then build on it week after week. But they also are learning in different ways. So students not only are reading about issues, but they're watching videos on it. They're writing and reflecting on what they've learned. They share their reflections, both orally and in writing with class colleagues, so that they're learning to assess their own work, but also to critique others' work. And they're learning through both of those experiences. And they're actually also listening and watching their class colleagues doing different types of projects. So it's multi kind of looking at education from all the senses and really trying to figure out opportunities for people to learn in a variety of ways. And the other thing that I love about this program is that we've connected the dots for the students. And what I mean by that is in law school, we teach a lot of topics segmented. So like there's a course in immigration law. There's another course in interviewing and counseling. There's another course in research, another course in cross-cultural understanding, in writing, in ethics. And it's up to the student usually to figure out how all of those topics meld together and how they work together. But what we've done in VIISTA is we've been able to create exercises that incorporate more than one of these course topics. So every single one of the students' exercises that they engage in the course involves more than one topic, and it shows the students how these topics work together. So just as one example, one of the first assignments that students do in the program is to plan for an interview with someone to learn about that person's cultural background or religious tradition. So in that one exercise, students are planning, they're writing a case plan, they're learning about religious differences or cultural differences. They're engaging in interviewing, and it's all combined in one activity. And that's how the whole curriculum is designed and developed. And so who are our students? So our students are, and you'll hear from them and meet them soon, they are passionate champions for immigrant justice who are pioneers and really kind of willing to take the plunge and try to build this field collectively and try to create new career paths in the law. They are people who want to make a meaningful impact and become part of the solution. And they are the most diverse class I know at Villanova, which is so amazing. And we all, as a result, learn from each other. So the students, in terms of diversity, they range in age from 18 to our oldest student was 86. And they live in 48 states around the country and in other countries as well. In fact, Layla, who's on the call, is working in Afghanistan, and she's taking the course from there. We have a student from the Philippines and from other places around the world as well. And they come with such a diverse range of backgrounds. There are a lot of students who are bringing experiences that they've had in other fields, and they're bringing it to this field. And it's just so enriching to get to know and learn from them. And I know that they're going to use those experiences to help immigrants on the job. Interestingly, we're finding that 40% of our students in the most recent class are working at immigrant serving organizations already, but 70% don't have any prior connection to the immigration field. So that means that we're bringing through VIISTA new people into the ecosystem. And that is how we're going to grow. And that's how we're going to respond to that disconnect between the numbers of people who need help and the numbers of people who are trained to help. And between 15 and 30% of our students are immigrants. They identify as immigrants. And you'll hear from some of them today. And we have 20 people who graduated from VIISTA who are now accredited representatives. And 6 of them have started their own new legal services organizations to provide legal services to immigrants. So next, you're going to hear a little bit from our students, and I'm going to pass it back to Robin.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. That was, as always, inspiring and fun to listen to. I never get tired of that. Shakara, can you please take it from here?
Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about my experience as a refugee and working with immigrants and refugees communities. My name is Shakara Rahimi. I'm an Afghan physician trained in public health and worked closely with the U.S. government and U.S. aid organizations on maternal and child health initiatives at various teaching hospitals in Kabul, Afghanistan. In 2014, the U.S. granted me a special immigration visa to bring my family to safety in the United States. Our family was welcomed to the United States by World Relief, one of the 9 national resettlement agencies. Since I had a strong desire to help newcomers, I soon was working as a cultural consultant assisting to resettle other newly arrived refugees. I learned many things through my own experience having to flee my country, and many more things as I try to assess other refugees. Here are just a few. When you are forced to flee your country for the safety of your family, it's extremely difficult to leave behind extended family and good friends, your culture, cherished belongings, and favorite places that hold precious memories. It's challenging to start life all over again in a new country where the language, culture, and expectation are so different, and where your previous education, experience, and qualifications may not be recognized, especially if you are still dealing with the trauma of violence, threats, sudden separation, and great loss. Behind every number is a story. Let's remember that when we talk about immigrants and people seeking asylum, they are not statistics. They are human beings with hopes, dreams, family, and friends. Until last year, I was working as a surgeon assistant at various teaching hospitals in Maryland. But when more than 80,000 Afghans were airlifted to the United States in 2021, I realized that my first-hand understanding of the refugees' experience might allow me to be of unique assistance to these newcomers. I am passionate about working for and with refugees and immigrants. I work as the Afghan Alliance Coordinator with Luminous Network for New Americans, a nonprofit organization based in Maryland. Since last January, Luminous has been provided services to more than 500 Afghans. In my work, I see immigrants throughout the resettlement process, and they have so many needs. But the greatest need is to finding ways to get legal representation and employment. My day-to-day work has shown me the huge gaps in access to legal representation across the country and the drastic disparity in outcomes when asylum-seeking families do not have access to an attorney. With these huge needs, can we wait for more lawyers? Obviously, no. I enrolled in VIISTA last year to train to become an accredited representative. I believe that the combination of my cultural understanding of Afghans and the legal education provided by VIISTA will make me an effective advocate. My experience in VIISTA has been incredible. I was able to do the coursework on my own schedule, which is very important as a working professional. It was also a supportive community of other students from all over the country representing all kinds of communities. The skills that I developed through VIISTA are going to help me to provide high quality services to the immigrants community. Although the program was remote, the course structure was engaging and the students completed a variety of hands-on assignments. VIISTA provided the education and tools to turn my passion into effective compassion. Although with the law, you will learn the history, spiritual, and truly human aspects of immigrations. It's also a career development tool for skilled immigrants who are still looking for their professional place in the United States. Through VIISTA, I learned about the types of visa they can apply for, how to do an intake, how to identify what they are eligible for, how to prepare the applications. Ultimately, how to successfully work with immigrants, knowing laws and practices. I am excited by what I have learned in VIISTA already and for what it will equip me to do as we all face these overwhelming demands for legal services. I am able to help hundreds of immigrants in my community now. VIISTA is not only education, but a career path to those who are eager to help newcomers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shakara, for that window onto your experience and for the vivid description and demonstration of why you're such an effective advocate and a gift for those who you serve, and an example of what it looks like to, answer the call. So thank you for being here and thank you for your work. Is Samuel here?
Here.
Yes. Hello, Samuel. Sabu.
How are you? And good day to everyone on this call today. I want to be grateful to all of you for leaving your busy schedule to come to listen to us and to know why it is that immigrants need a special attention of legal representation. My name is Samuel Abu. I'm originally from Liberia, a little country in West Africa with a population of about 5 million. We had 14 years of civil war, and as a result, the result was actually because of the war was because of corruption, human rights abuses, and and many other vices of society. So we were able to go along with so many people fled the country from the beginning of the war up to the end. And at the end, many of them came as resettlement people, and others came into the country on legal visas. But after coming, they felt that there was no need for them to return, or they feared that they would be persecuted when they returned. And therefore, including me, many of us decided to sought asylum. When I was going through the asylum process, it took so long because you needed legal representation. And as an asylee, you do not have any money. You don't have any funding to be able to. You don't have any money to be able to pay the lawyers, especially when some of the lawyers just want to make sure that you get work authorization, taking advantage of the 160 days window. And right after that, sometimes some of them do not even go with you to the court. If they have to go to court, they have to charge you some more money. It took me almost 7 years waiting for my case. I did not go to an immigration court, but my case was just in the file, and it stayed so long, I did not even know what was happening. I did not know who to ask. When you call on the line, you can't get anyone answering you. So all of a sudden, after 7 years, me and my family were granted asylum. So I am a typical example of the problems that happen within the legal system for immigration. I joined the Catholic Social Services as a humanitarian, and being an immigrant, I got myself actually placed in with the Refugee Resettlement Program. Currently, I work as supervisor for case management. So I am like the technical person for meeting the resettlement requirements for all of the refugees that come through the Catholic Social Services, which is being sponsored by the USCCB, which is the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. In my work, we are able to help the refugees resettle, find housing, welcome them, find housing for them, put their children in school, make sure we get them to jobs, and we provide a case management until they become self-sufficient, quote unquote. I say quote unquote because self-sufficient is a kind of little different from what I may refer to as self-reliance, because it becomes very difficult for people to be self-sufficient in the United States, especially as an immigrant, because your economic system in your country is different from the one here. So you have a lot of challenges that you meet. Then, while working as a refugee resettlement provider, we decided as a Catholic Church to organize something we call the Coalition of the Catholic Coalition for Refugees and Resettlement. And why did this come about? I was one of the major heads in that, or the brain behind it, to ensure, because we said that the Catholic Church is providing services for humanity in all areas. And we have everybody here, we have the different groups, and we may end up doing the same thing. We said we did not want to be duplicating the different services that we provide. So based on that, we organized this coalition, inviting universities, Catholic education programs, the different groups that are in the Catholic Church. We brought them together. We started meeting. We had a group on political, that particular group was responsible for these things that come about where we want to push legislations. We are responsible for pushing legislations. And that was one of the ideas in pushing legislations. In doing so, we started looking, one day at one of the meetings, this paper came out, which was from VIISTA, looking for people, looking for students, trying to encourage us to enroll. So I said, well, I'm going to enroll in this program because it talks too much about representation. And I have been a victim of not being represented appropriately because I didn't see no reason that my case had to go for 7 years, you know. So I said, well, I will go in, since I'm already in the area working with immigrants and refugees, I will be a great asset to my job. So I approached my directors and they approved. I went into the class. What VIISTA taught me actually was first, I got to understand that the best way refugees or immigrants can help themselves is to have the refugees and the immigrants themselves involved. So I took myself as one, just like Shakira, you know, because why we should be the people really involved or we should take advantage of this VIISTA program is because we know the situation. We have worn the shoes. We know what it is to be an immigrant in America. We know what it is to be without representation. Minus me, there are millions of people out there who meet us every day. They have these problems, no representation. And some people, I tell them, I say, completing VIISTA program, your problem will be solved. We'll find a solution to your problem. We're not going to approve you, but we will try to find the reason why you are not being approved. And if we can find a reason, we can get a solution. So since I went to VIISTA, me being a person that worked with refugees, my office has been the place of an entrail and what we call we are the one who actually start all the process for most of the immigrants that come. I've gotten to find out that almost every month I receive walk-in cases of almost 15 to 30 people. Many of them have been in this country for years without documentation or without papers, legal papers. So when I sit and listen to them, what I do is I refer them to our attorney's office at the Catholic Social Services. We have a set of attorneys. They are overwhelmed with the cases because of our refugee population. In the Afghan program, we brought in about 208 refugees and SIVs. All the papers have been worked on and we have a small staff. So I sit here sometimes, I sift to them and look at your program and recommend to them and recommend which specific office or what services that you need. Many of our clients come here, they really don't know what they need. And I'll be able to help them to identify their needs. In the VIISTA program,
Daniel, I need to give you a 1-minute warning.
Yeah.
To go on. So if you can wrap up about what you've learned in VIISTA quickly, we need to move along. I'm sorry.
No problem. The VIISTA program has helped me connect to so many service providers that I wouldn't have known. It helped me in the program. I came across people who are lawyers and retired lawyers, but they were in other areas and they came in as if all of us were starting immigration studies together. And I saw myself as somebody that we can work together, but the VIISTA program helps everyone, especially as refugees. We know the different country conditions. We know how to do the research. We know what to put on the paper to be able to help you. And the course itself is, the curriculum itself is learner-friendly. The interviewing techniques, the research, connecting with people, and now I'm trying to look at how we can have these immigrants integrated with paper or minus paper, how you can get yourself into the system, how you can get yourself helped. So this is where the VIISTA program has placed me, and I'm more or less like a resourceful person at my job.
Yeah. So thank you very, very much for that, Samuel. You've done a great job at explaining what lack of representation looks like, what being in limbo feels like, and what case management is all about, and how the Catholic Social Services is approaching it in coalition. And we really appreciate your call for involvement. And you make a great case for, the difference that people with lived immigrant experience can make together with VIISTA. So thank you for your presentation and thank you for your work.
You're welcome.
So those are like great stories. And just like, 2 individual students, we have, 500 more of those in the VIISTA program. And so I want to just talk a little bit about what at the strategic initiative we're doing to try to knit all of these things together into a movement. We aim to build an enabling environment and the tools that are needed to support the VIISTA students as they pursue accreditation and pioneer new roles that add capacity to the legal ecosystem for immigrants. I just want to tell you what some of our projects have been in the first year that we've launched, because we've been really pleased with our progress so far and have a lot more to go. One, we've first been working on thought leadership, just framing the problem and crafting the value proposition of the recognition and accreditation program and getting the word out into the world through conferences like this. We've been throughout the country. We've been at the NIC, at the National Immigration Integration Conference. And we even went to Rome to meet the Pope as part of the Network for Migrant Education. So we're getting the word out and try to lead with thought leadership. We also target specific communities in need of alternatives to law school to get trained legal representatives for immigrants. And so that's been through things like specific recruitment strategies and raising money for scholarships for them to attend VIISTA. A few examples are partnering with the American Bar Association on a pilot program for Afghans to take VIISTA. We are also working with the St. Augustine Foundation to expand the use of accredited representatives by funding students who want to work in the immigration hot zone of San Diego. So if anybody here is on the call in Southern California, please get out the word that there are scholarships for people to come to VIISTA through that program. Similarly, in Southeastern Pennsylvania, the Justamere Foundation is funding scholarships for those who are seeking to make accredited reps a career track and get trained in VIISTA to do that. And that's another opportunity that's available. We also do targeted recruitment in lawyer deserts where VIISTA has particular utility as an online program that is interactive. And on the regulatory front, we have led the advocacy campaign to clear the backlogs at the RNA office in the Department of Justice that credentials accredited reps and recognized organizations. So if you applied a year ago, it was taking 12 to 18 months to get an answer. But if you apply today, you'll probably get a response within 3 to 12 weeks. So we continue to monitor this and other legislation so the regulatory environment will grow with our movement. And we've also joined coalitions and advocacy campaigns to help support funding for universal representation, funding for USCIS, and we're getting interested in citizenship and naturalization money as well. But in this process, we're also raising awareness and support for the program in Congress and in the administration and with our NGO colleagues. And finally, we're working on the challenge of our third big bucket is addressing the challenge of finding mentorship for accredited reps in training and building a network of collegial support. Conferences help with that, as does a project we're piloting with Justicio and Immigrant Advocates Network and others, networking us, a whole diverse set of stakeholders through a Slack channel and developing behaviors, rhythms, standards for that to be a fruitful conversation and relationship building. So stay tuned on that. And finally, we are focused on research and innovation in job placements, training for jobs that may not exist in places where they need to be. It's extraordinary that almost half of the VIISTA trained accredited reps have launched their own organizations that are recognized with them, and we will support other pathways too. And this will be an ongoing focus of the SIG in the coming year and definitely a key driver of our movement building. So that's where we are. and there's a lot more to flesh out. And so, Michelle, do you want to explain how the breakout rooms will work, where people can flesh out some of these ideas with us?
Yeah. So thanks, Robin and Chakra and Samuel. So basically, what we're thinking about here is how to build this into a movement, right? So we have the ability, we know that the need exists. We know that there are a lot of passionate people who want to be involved. And really, when we think about the different elements of really scaling this up, we think about it in terms of a student on-ramp, getting more people onto the bridge, the affiliate pipeline, getting students who are through the VIISTA program to be able to provide representation through affiliates, through DOJ recognized organizations. And then, as Robin was saying, kind of the foundation of the bridge, which is the thought leadership, the public advocacy, and everything else that we're doing in the SIG. And our goal is, as we do this, we'll build the size of the bridge. So now it's like a 1 lane. Let's make it into a 6 lane or a 10 lane. And that will increase capacity, increase credibility, and increase visibility. And of course, services to immigrants. So as a group, we need your help. And so the next part of this session is we're going to break out into rooms that are going to be facilitated discussions. And we want you to talk about this question. What can you do in the movement for immigrant justice through accredited representatives and immigrant advocates? So you're going to be in your breakout rooms for 20 minutes. You're going to be assigned. So don't worry, everything's going to be easy for you to follow. Start when you get into the breakout rooms with introductions, just simple, short, your name and where you're from. Then the V-Stars will facilitate a discussion and report back. And the idea is that we co-create and imagine a future where all immigrants and refugees have access to advocates. And think big, like this is a huge problem. We saw those numbers. 1 person to 1,416 undocumented immigrants. We need to break out of the traditional ways of thinking and approach this from a different perspective. And we can only do that if we get ideas from everyone. So think big and bring this message even beyond the session. So we will send you into the breakout rooms now. Okay, so hopefully we have some good ideas that we can share about what can we all do in this movement for immigrant justice by expanding the capacity of accredited reps and immigrant advocates. So I just want to facilitate a discussion among the groups. We have until 1:25. And so I think what I'd like to do is we have about 12 minutes. I'd like to call on each room to give a 1 minute, if you can, summary of maybe some of the key takeaways. And hopefully we'll have some time for discussion as well. So even if you can keep it less than a minute, like just your key takeaways, imagine you're doing like one of those VIISTA exercises in VoiceThread, and it's going to be quick and to the point. So let me call on group 1. Does everyone know what groups they were in so that will work? All right, group 1.
7.
I believe that was me, my group. So one of the things that Nicole brought up, she's going to be joining VIISTA soon, is that even for people who are interested in starting their own organizations, that one of the hurdles is the funding, especially in places where they're rural or, a legal desert, let's say. So one of the suggestions was perhaps facilitating the opportunity for the smaller organizations to join forces and fundraise together for things like that.
Uh-huh. So, right. So there are people, there are lawyer deserts where we need representation. There are people who want to start organizations there, but how do they get the infrastructure, both in terms of fundraising, but also how do you start an organization? How do you incorporate? How do you get the tax thing? So all of that seems to be one of the holes. So that's a great one, Veronica. So how about room 2, which was Joanne McAfee and Mohammed Omar?
So we actually had, Mohammed has a really long background with, working with the embassy, and I think he said 20 years. So he is now in VIISTA wanting to kind of take the skills that he's had before and put that together so that he can better represent, people from his country. Also, we had Natalia, and she was saying how she, in her community, is she's helping Ukrainians mostly to connect with schools where they can find programs that are free for them or low cost. She's trying to advocate, because I guess in certain states, she said California, Pennsylvania, and Florida, because they fall under the humanitarian programs, they qualify for FAFSA. And so she's trying to kind of get more states on board with that. So she kind of just asked to be involved in these in meetings when the different colleges have them, to just kind of talk about, what they should be qualifying for and see if they can get some more enrollment. So I thought that was pretty exciting.
All right, great. And so now room 3 was Layla and Mary Kay.
Hi, this is Mary Kay. I think real quick, Layla, just funding was a big thing, especially for nonprofits. How do you pay somebody that first year before they become accredited, while they're gaining the experience or accreditation? So how can a nonprofit have funding to help pay for these new graduates from the programs before they become accredited, before they can actually bring in money to the agency through low bono costs? The other thing we talked about is reaching out to agencies that already have employees or volunteers that work with immigrants, such as medical agencies or educational agencies or housing agencies, and seeing if any of those people would be interested in expanding their knowledge. They already work with immigrants. They already have the passion to work with immigrants. Maybe they would be interested in pursuing a career with accreditation, so they can expand, what they can offer to these great individuals that they're already serving. So tap into a resource that's already there, basically.
Right. Yeah. Social workers, I could see a lot of synergies.
Yes.
Yeah, those are great ideas. How about room 4, Lisa and Emanuela?
Hi, it was just Lisa, but we had a great conversation. And one of the things that was brought up, that Joe brought up, was highlighting the importance of this as a career path, so that folks understand when you're hiring an accredited representative, it's not a side program that the person decided to take on, et cetera, but because it's so difficult for agencies that don't know about this to just blindly hire an accredited rep, they probably just want to hire a lawyer. And on that same notice, Kayla was telling us that the outreach should be done earlier, so that we're outreaching for folks that are at the undergrad level, so they can start taking courses that can be beneficial to them as an accredited rep. So just like we have tables for outreach, for college outreach days, because the one thing that all of us, Jean, myself, Jill, and Kayla said is we didn't know this program existed. And when we do, online searches, that's when it comes up, but we're not seeing it on social media as much. And so maybe that type of outreach to our younger folks.
Yeah, I love that. And if everyone can do a pitch on social media about being in this event today, you'll get it out to your networks. And when the video is up, send it around. Those are all things that we can do. I love that. All right. Group 5 was Eddie and Margaret.
Yeah, I'll let Brandon talk. He had a great idea on a project he's working on at this time.
Okay. Hi, Brandon.
Hi, everyone. I will keep it to less than a minute. My idea and hope is that we can set up a remote telehealth or telelegal clinic, starting in Reynosa and hopefully going over to Matamoros with Sidewalk School. The idea would be to have a Know Your Rights charla done remotely by a VIISTA student on a projector. That person can then answer people's broad questions about the law, what applies for asylum, what doesn't. After which they would be able to break away and sit down with either a fully accredited representative or attorney to go over their case before they present to the port. I believe that this will be very important with the new transit ban coming in May 11th. And, I think this will also be a good proof of concept to help maybe provide access to these legal deserts in the future. It's also a great way to provide legal services in places that are dangerous, where certain groups can't send their lawyers in person to. And the hope is that we can do this with lawyers for the government, but the component of VIISTA graduates will be very important for the Know Your Rights charlas to kind of free up the lawyers to do that more in-depth one-on-one consultation.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I love it. That's a great model. Brandon, we're so glad to have you in this course. We'll follow up with you and our other friends that are working on the southern border. So that was group 5. Group 6 was Lauren and Merlise. Lauren Ahmed.
Whitney was in our group. Merlise was not in our group.
Oh, okay.
But we talked again about the funding issue. It's an important one. Whitney lives in Ohio, and again, she had a very hard time and noted the VIISTA assignment where you're supposed to contact a nonprofit organization. And she had a real difficult time doing that. So again, she's in a legal desert. And she also spoke about the difficulties from the immigrant perspective of finding representation out there. So Whitney finds it difficult to find a job, and then migrants there are finding it difficult to find representation. And Blythe was also in our group, and the idea that both of them mentioned was getting the word out as to what an accredited representative is, and Blythe is working on that for us. Whitney relayed, which I thought was important or significant, that she had to explain to a nonprofit what an accredited representative is in an attempt to convince them, because that organization was just looking for lawyers. So again, it's marketing, I think, and marketing this as a potentially a new industry for people to go into. And then from my perspective, I thought that there are so many smaller projects that accredited representatives can handle, and that one being my temporary protective status clinic project, where there's just not enough people to handle it. And it's something that takes someone from being undocumented to properly documented and able to seek employment.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. And thanks, Whitney, for sharing your experience in Ohio. That's always very important, especially in legal deserts, because I think we have, an inroad there because of the virtual nature of this program. Okay, Olga, you were in room 7.
Yes, and Laura graciously offered to be, or volunteered to be, the one to share back. So I'll let Laura.
Our group was we're big fans of the bridge. And so we thought one of the things to turn it into the 6-lane super bridge would be to increase the visibility of recognition and accreditation, something that I think other groups have talked about. But our group generated really good ideas about, ways that individuals can take information and share the information about the VIISTA program. So things like giving out pamphlets, having a template email that people can forward to their personal networks, and have the parish system seemed like a great opportunity to get more word out through networks. Also, libraries and corporate America are places where we thought we'd find receptive audiences, because we think that there is a high degree of interest, but we need to increase the visibility. So I think another one was a really good one, an example of the alumni network at Villanova, and that, you know, somebody heard about it through a reunion, and that was, you know, something that if it's sent out more broadly through Villanova alumni networks, it can reach more people.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thanks, Laura. And Hillary, you were in room 8.
Yes, hello.
You're going to have to talk fast. We have 1 minute.
Yes, we had 2 points, but Sandra was going to share them. One was the importance of undergraduate education in this picture and recruiting students into undergrad education and transitioning them into careers as legal advocates. And the other was the importance of telling your story. Sandra, I don't know if you want to say a few words. I was just trying to rush that real quick.
Yeah, sure. It was about that, you know, share life as an immigrant with other people, friends, family, colleagues, and also get involved with a nonprofit organizations that help immigrant people, and, you know, create events to discuss about how immigration rights can help them to pursue the dream, the future, and studies and good jobs.
Nice. All right. So that was great. So all the facilitators send Robin and I any additional notes, all your notes, actually, so that we have place.
You've given us a work plan. Yeah.
I'm going to switch it over to Robin.
Right. So I think, again, really, as I just put in the chat, really robust and practical ideas that are very helpful as we try to put some meat on these bones. But we're still building those bones and that skeleton. And you've all been here at the start of it and super important for making it all kind of work together. And we look forward to continuing on that. So I think this has been very helpful in giving background, in creating foundations, and in soliciting your input and feedback. And we are going to leave you on the hook to help us as we build this movement. This is a long-term thing, hopefully not 5 years, but certainly not just next week. So we will be reaching out to you and really appreciate your expertise and your generosity and your passion. With that, I'm going to thank everyone for attending and participating. I'm going to let you know that today's session will be captioned and published on the Migration Summit YouTube channel. And we invite you to register and join us on the summit for future sessions throughout the month. And we will see you at VIISTA and at Villanova. Now that we know who you are forever in our community. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to our speakers also, and thanks to MIT again. All right.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle, Robin. It was so wonderful to learn more about your work and see such engaging audience. And yeah, I look forward to connecting further. But I just sent the link to our agenda for everyone to continue to join us. We have a lot of events in line for the next couple of weeks, and including some related to legal rights and strategic litigation for the protection of human rights. So I definitely feel you'll want to continue to join. Thanks so much for everything, and we'll stay connected.